The Velkari fleet moved through space like a metal storm. 800 ships of different sizes flew together in perfect formation. At the front were the massive dreadnoughts, each one bigger than a city. Behind them came the cruisers and destroyers. At the edges flew thousands of small fighter ships like angry insects. War Commander Thexvar stood on the bridge of his flagship. His 6 arms moved across control panels, while his large black eyes watched the displays. For 300 years, his people had conquered world after world. They had never lost a battle. They had never even come close to losing. The Velkari were perfect at war. Their ships were grown rather than built, made from living metal that could heal itself. Their weapons could burn through any armor. Their soldiers were bred for fighting and nothing else. When they wanted a planet, they took it. When they wanted a star system, they claimed it. No one had ever stopped them. Today would be no different. The target was a small blue planet in a system called Kepler 442. The creatures living there had just learned to travel between stars. They were young and weak. The Velkari had conquered 1,000 worlds exactly like this one. How long until we reach the planet? Thexvar asked his navigation officer. 6 hours, War Commander. Our scouts report only basic defenses, a few orbital stations, some primitive missiles. Nothing that can threaten us. Thexvar nodded. This would be over quickly. His people needed the resources on that planet. The rare metals. The water. The workers they would capture and turn into slaves. It was the natural order of things. The strong took from the weak. The fleet continued forward. The ships moved in perfect lines, just like they had been trained. Every captain knew exactly what to do. First, they would destroy the orbital defenses. Then they would land troops on the planet. Within a day, the conquest would be complete. But as they approached the edge of the star system, something appeared on their sensors. A single ship was waiting for them, positioned directly in their path. "What is that?" Thexvar demanded. His sensor officer worked quickly at his station. "Unknown design, War Commander. It appears to be about 100 meters long, very small compared to our ships." Thexvar looked at the main screen. The enemy ship was indeed tiny. His smallest cruiser was 10 times bigger. His flagship was 50 times bigger. What were these creatures thinking? "Open communication channels," he ordered. The view screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was one of the planet dwellers, though different from what their scouts had described. This one had dark hair and calm eyes. He wore some kind of uniform. "This is Captain Wu Jihan, of the UESN Indomitable," the creature said. His voice was steady and clear. "You are entering protected space. Turn back now, or we will consider your actions an act of war." The bridge of the Velkari flagship went silent. Several officers looked at each other in confusion. Thexvar himself was speechless for a moment. In 300 years of conquest, no one had ever spoken to them like this. Most species begged for mercy. Some tried to negotiate. A few simply ran away. But none had ever threatened the Velkari. Finally, Thexvar began to laugh. The sound was deep and harsh. Soon other officers on the bridge were laughing too. The idea was so ridiculous. One tiny ship against their entire fleet. "Small creature," Thexvar said, "do you know who we are? We are the Velkari. We have conquered 500 worlds. We have destroyed entire star systems. Your little ship cannot stop us." Captain Jihan's expression did not change. "I know exactly who you are. I also know you need to leave this system immediately." "Or what?" Thexvar asked, still amused. Or we will make you leave. The war commander's laughter died. There was something in the human's voice, a certainty that made Thexvar uncomfortable, but it was impossible. One ship could not fight 800. You have 1 minute to surrender, Thexvar announced. After that, we will destroy you and continue to your planet. No, Jihan said simply. You will not. The communication ended. The view screen went dark. Thexvar stared at the empty screen for several seconds. In all his years of command, nothing like this had ever happened. Usually the sight of the Velkari fleet was enough to make entire planets surrender, but this human seemed completely unafraid. War Commander, his tactical officer reported. The enemy ship is not moving. It maintains position directly in our path. Scan it again. Find out what weapons it has. The sensors worked for several minutes. When the results came back, they were confusing. Sir, we detect energy signatures unlike anything in our database. The ship appears to have some kind of shielding system, but it's different from anything we've seen. And there are weapon ports, but we cannot identify the technology. Thexvar considered this information. Perhaps these creatures had developed something new. But it did not matter. Numbers always won in space combat. Always. Send 50 cruisers forward, he ordered. Destroy that ship. Yes, War Commander. The Velkari cruisers moved ahead of the main fleet. Each one was heavily armed and armored. Together they carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ship looked tiny in comparison. Target locked on the enemy vessel, reported the tactical officer. Fire. 50 ships opened fire at once. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the fleets. The barrage was overwhelming, designed to completely vaporize the target. There was no way anything could survive it, but something impossible happened. As the weapon struck the human ship, a blue glow surrounded it. The energy beams seemed to be absorbed rather than deflected. The missiles exploded harmlessly against some kind of barrier. When the light faded, the ship was still there, completely undamaged. What happened? Thexvar demanded. Sir, the enemy vessel appears to have absorbed our attack. Energy readings are off the scale. Before anyone could respond, the human ship began to glow brighter. Then it fired back. The return fire was unlike anything the Velkari had ever seen. Beams of pure energy struck their cruisers with impossible precision. In seconds, 12 ships simply vanished. They did not explode. They did not break apart. They simply ceased to exist. The bridge of the flagship fell silent. Thexvar stared at the tactical display in shock. 12 cruisers destroyed in one attack. It should have been impossible. War Commander, his communication officer said quietly, the human ship is transmitting again. Put it on screen. Captain Jihan appeared once more. His expression was still calm, but there was something harder in his eyes now. I warned you, he said. Turn back. This is your last chance. Thexvar felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Fear, not for himself, but for his fleet, for his people. What were these humans? Who are you? He whispered. We are the ones who stand in your way, Jihan replied. Choose wisely, War Commander. Your people's lives depend on it. The transmission ended again, leaving the Velkari to stare at their enemy in growing dread. War Commander Thexvar felt his confidence cracking like ice under pressure. 12 ships destroyed with one attack. It should not have been possible. But the empty spaces in his formation told the truth. The humans had done something no enemy had ever accomplished. Analysis report, he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. His science officer worked frantically at her station. War Commander, the energy signatures are completely unknown. The human ship seems to have absorbed our weapons fire and converted it into something else. Their return fire measured at least 10 times the power we used against them. Thexvar's mandibles clicked nervously. In 3 centuries of conquest, the Velkari had never faced technology like this. Their own weapons were based on bioenergy, grown from living crystals that could channel incredible power. But these humans had done something different, something new. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "the human vessel is moving." On the main screen, the small ship began to change position. It did not move like Velkari vessels, which flowed through space like living creatures. Instead, it moved with sharp, precise movements that seemed to defy physics. One moment it was in front of them. The next, it had somehow shifted to their left flank without any visible acceleration. "How did it do that?" Thexvar demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors detected no thrust signatures, no gravitational distortions. It simply moved." Inside the human ship, Captain Jihan stood calmly on his bridge. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Unlike the Velkari bridge with its dozens of officers, the human ship operated with only 4 people on duty. "Do-hyun, how are the reactors?" Jihan asked. Chief Engineer Kim Do-hyun checked his displays from the engineering station. "Running at 30% capacity, Captain. Those absorption shields worked perfectly. We've got enough stored energy for another dozen shots like that." "Good. Soman, what's their formation telling us?" Tactical Officer Lee Soman studied the enemy fleet on her screens. "They're confused, sir. Look at how their ships are positioned. They expected us to be destroyed by now. They don't have a backup plan." "That's the problem with fighting the same way for hundreds of years," Jihan observed. "You stop learning how to adapt. Minsu, any word from the colony?" Communications Officer Park Minsu nodded. "Governor Kim sends his thanks, Captain. The evacuation is proceeding, but they need at least 6 more hours to get everyone to the shelters." "Then, we give them 6 hours," Jihan said simply. "Soman, let's show them what human tactics look like." Back on the Velkari flagship, Thexvar was growing desperate. His superiors had given him this fleet to add another world to their empire. He could not return with nothing but losses. "Send all cruisers forward," he commanded. "Surround that ship. Use maximum firepower." "Sir, that will leave our flanks exposed." "Do it. Nothing can survive the combined fire of our entire cruiser force." 150 Velkari cruisers moved forward, spreading out to encircle the human ship. Each one locked weapons on the small vessel. The firepower they represented could crack a planet's crust. "Fire at will," Thexvar ordered. The space around the human ship erupted in light. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and biomissiles filled the void. The attack was so intense that the Velkari sensors could not penetrate the energy cloud. Surely nothing could survive such an assault. But when the light faded, the human ship was still there. More than that, it was glowing brighter than before. "Impossible," Thexvar whispered. The human ship suddenly accelerated toward the nearest group of cruisers. But instead of attacking them directly, it did something unexpected. It flew between them, weaving through their formation like it was dancing. As it moved, beams of energy lanced out from its weapons, but they were not aimed at the ships. Instead, the human was targeting the bioconduits that connected the Velkari weapons to their power sources. Each precise shot disabled a ship without destroying it. Within minutes, 20 cruisers were dead in space, their weapons offline. "How are they doing this?" Thexvar's tactical officer asked in amazement. "They are learning our ship designs as they fight," the science officer reported. Look at this data. Each shot is more precise than the last. They are mapping our vessels in real time. On the human bridge, Lee Salmon was indeed analyzing every aspect of the Velkari ships. Her quantum computers processed thousands of sensor readings per second, building detailed models of enemy technology. "Captain, I found their weakness," she announced. "Their bioships heal damage automatically, but they can't adapt to new attack patterns quickly. If we keep changing our approach, they can't compensate fast enough." "Show me," Jihan said. Somin's fingers flew over her controls. "Watch this." The Indomitable suddenly changed direction again, this time diving below the plane of battle. The Velkari ships tried to follow, but their movements were slow and predictable. As they turned to track the human vessel, Somin fired at their engine clusters. The effect was immediate. 16 cruisers lost power and began drifting. They were not destroyed, but they were out of the fight. Thexvar watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. They did not try to match firepower with firepower. Instead, they used speed, precision, and tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. "War Commander," his communication officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the human ship." Captain Jihan appeared on the screen again. Behind him, his crew continued their work with calm professionalism. "War Commander Thexvar," Jihan said, "you have lost over 50 ships so far. I can destroy the rest of your fleet if necessary, but I would prefer not to. Your crews are following orders just like mine. Call off this attack and withdraw. No one else has to die today." Thexvar felt his pride warring with his fear. The Velkari had never retreated from any battle, but they had also never faced an enemy like this. "You cannot defeat all of us," he said, trying to sound confident. "We have 800 ships." "You had 800 ships," Jihan corrected. "Now you have 743 functional vessels. Would you like me to continue the demonstration?" As if to emphasize his point, the human ship suddenly appeared directly above a Velkari destroyer. A single precise shot disabled its main reactor. The ship went dark and began spinning, slowly in space. 742, Jihan said calmly. Thexvar realized with growing dread that the human was right. This small ship was picking apart his fleet like a predator hunting prey. Each attack was perfectly planned and executed. Each shot found exactly the right target. "What are you?" he asked. "We are humans," Jihan replied, "and we protect what is ours. This system is under our protection. The people on that planet are under our protection. You cannot have them. One ship cannot protect an entire world." Jihan smiled for the first time. It was not a pleasant expression. "War Commander, this is not one ship protecting one world. This is humanity showing the galaxy what happens when you threaten our people. Every battle is broadcast. Every technique is recorded. Every lesson is learned by all of us." He paused, letting that sink in. "Right now, there are 50 ships like this one being built in human space. In 1 year, there will be 500. You can conquer this system today, but tomorrow you will face an enemy that learns from every battle, adapts to every strategy, and never stops improving." The transmission ended, leaving Thexvar alone with his thoughts and his rapidly shrinking fleet. The battle had been raging for 2 hours, and War Commander Thexvar was beginning to understand a terrible truth. The humans did not fight like any species he had ever encountered. They did not rely on superior numbers or overwhelming firepower. Instead, they fought with their minds. "Status report," he demanded from his bridge crew. "Sir, we have lost 97 ships so far. The human vessel shows no signs of damage or fatigue. Our conventional weapons appear to be completely ineffective." Thexvar studied the tactical display. His fleet still outnumbered the enemy 7-1, but numbers meant nothing if they could not hit their target. The human ship moved through space like it was alive, anticipating every attack before it came. "How are they predicting our movements?" he asked his science officer. "War Commander, I believe they are analyzing our behavioral patterns. Each time we attack, they learn something new about how we think and how we fight. Their computers are processing this information faster than we can adapt." On the bridge of the Indomitable, the human crew worked with quiet intensity. Captain Jihan stood at the center, coordinating their efforts with calm authority. "Do-hyun, how much energy do we have stored?" he asked. Chief Engineer Kim Do-hyun checked his readings. "We're at maximum capacity, Captain. Every shot they fire at us just makes us stronger. The absorption shields are working beyond all expectations." "Soman, what patterns are you seeing?" Tactical Officer Lee. Soman pulled up a complex display showing the movements of every Velkari ship. "They're creatures of habit, sir. Look at this data. Every formation they use follows the same basic principles. Every attack pattern is a variation of something they've done before. They're not creative." "That's because they've never needed to be," Jihan observed. "When you win every battle the same way for 300 years, you stop learning new ways to fight." "Minsu, any updates from Earth?" Communications Officer Park Minsu nodded. "Admiral Chen sends his compliments, Captain. The Second Fleet will reach this system in 18 hours, but he says to do whatever is necessary to protect the colony." 18 hours, Jihan repeated. "We can hold for 18 hours. Soman looked up from her station. "Captain, I have an idea. What if we stop playing defense and show them how humans really fight?" "I'm listening. Look at their formation. They're trying to surround us, but they're moving predictably. If we use the asteroid belt as cover, we can hit them from angles they're not expecting." Jihan smiled. "Do it." The Indomitable suddenly accelerated toward the edge of the star system, where a dense asteroid belt orbited the star. The Velkari fleet followed, but they could not match the human ship's speed or maneuverability. War Commander Thexvar watched the pursuit with growing frustration. "They are running," he announced to his bridge crew. "Perhaps they finally realize they cannot win." But his tactical officer looked uncertain. "Sir, why would they flee toward the asteroids? That will only trap them." "Because they are desperate," Thexvar replied. "Order all ships to follow. We will finish this now." The Velkari fleet entered the asteroid belt in their standard hunting formation. It was a tactic they had used countless times to corner fleeing enemies. The asteroids would block the human ship's escape routes, forcing it to face them directly. But as soon as they were deep in the belt, the humans sprang their trap. The Indomitable had not been running. It had been positioning itself. Using the asteroids as cover, it launched a coordinated attack from multiple directions. Energy beams ricocheted off asteroid surfaces, striking Velkari ships from impossible angles. The humans had turned the asteroid belt into a weapon. "They are using the environment against us," Thexvar's science officer reported in amazement. "They calculated the exact angles needed to bounce their weapons off the asteroids." More Velkari ships began to fall. The asteroid belt, which should have been their advantage, had become a death trap. Every asteroid the humans used became a mirror, reflecting their attacks in unpredictable directions. But the humans were just getting started. Chief Engineer Kim Do-hyun had been working on something, special while the battle raged. Captain, I've reconfigured our shields. Instead of just absorbing energy, I can now redirect it through the ship's hull. What does that mean? Jihan asked. It means we can become a weapon ourselves. Do-hyun activated his new configuration. The Indomitable's hull began to glow with stored energy from 100 Valkyrie attacks. Then, instead of firing conventional weapons, the entire ship became a projectile. The human vessel accelerated directly toward a Valkyrie dreadnought, its hull blazing with absorbed energy. At the last moment, it released all that power in a focused beam that cut through the massive ship like a blade through paper. The dreadnought split in half and exploded. On the Valkyrie flagship, Thexavar felt his certainty crumbling. How many ships have we lost now? 137, War Commander. At this rate, we will lose the entire fleet within 6 hours. Thexavar had commanded fleets for 50 years. He had conquered 47 worlds. He had never lost a single battle. But now he was watching his ships die one by one against an enemy that seemed to have no weaknesses. "What are we doing wrong?" he asked his tactical officer. "Sir, I believe we are fighting them the wrong way. We keep using the same strategies that have always worked before. But this enemy adapts to everything we do." "Then what do you suggest?" The tactical officer hesitated. "Perhaps we should try to learn from them, sir. Watch how they fight. See if we can adapt our own tactics." It was a radical idea. The Valkyrie had never needed to learn from their enemies before, but desperate times called for desperate measures. For the next hour, they tried to copy human tactics. They broke their rigid formations and tried to move more unpredictably. They attempted to use the asteroids as the humans had done. They even tried to coordinate smaller groups instead of fighting as one massive fleet. But every adaptation they made, the humans countered within minutes. It was as if the human ship could see into their minds and predict their thoughts before they acted on them. Captain Jihan watched the Valkyrie attempts to change their tactics with professional interest. "They're learning," he observed. "That's more than most enemies do." Lee Soman nodded. "But they're learning too slowly, Captain. Look at this." She showed him a tactical analysis. "They're still thinking like Valkyrie. They're trying to adapt our methods to their mindset instead of changing how they think about war entirely. That's the difference between us and them," Jahan said. "We don't just adapt our tactics. We adapt our entire approach to fighting. Every battle teaches us something new about ourselves and our enemies." Kim Do-hyun looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup in their flagship. I think they're preparing something big." "How big?" "Planet killer." "Big, sir." Jihan's expression hardened. Until now, the Valkyrie had been trying to disable his ship. But if they were preparing to use world-breaking weapons, it meant they were willing to destroy everything to win, including the human colony they had come to conquer. "Minsu, open a channel to War Commander Thexavar." "Channel open, sir." Thexavar's face appeared on the screen. The Valkyrie commander looked older than he had at the start of the battle. The stress of constant defeat had aged him. "War Commander," Jihan said, "I'm detecting weapons that could destroy this entire system. Surely you don't intend to use them? You have left us no choice, human. We cannot return to our empire with news of defeat. It would mean the end of everything we have built. And destroying a star system will accomplish what exactly? It will show the galaxy that no one defies the Valkyrie and lives." Jihan considered this. "War Commander, you're about to make the biggest mistake in your species' history. You're about to show the galaxy exactly why humanity will never surrender to you." "What do you mean?" You're about to learn what happens when humans fight with nothing left to lose. The transmission ended, and Jihan turned to his crew. All right, people. They want to see what we can really do. Let's show them. War Commander Thexvar stood before the massive charging chamber of his flagship's world-breaker weapon. The biomechanical device pulsed with deadly energy, preparing to unleash destruction beyond imagination. Around him, his remaining officers worked with desperate efficiency. "Charging sequence at 60%, reported his weapons officer. "The planet killer will be ready to fire in 10 minutes. Thexvar nodded grimly. He had never wanted to use such a weapon against a single ship, but the humans had left him no choice. Better to destroy everything than return home in defeat. The Velkari Empire had built itself on the foundation of unstoppable conquest. One loss could shatter that reputation forever. "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "the human vessel is moving toward us." On the main display, the Indomitable was indeed approaching the Velkari flagship. But it was not fleeing or trying to escape the system. Instead, it flew directly toward them, as if accepting a final battle. "They know they cannot survive the Worldbreaker," Thexvar said with satisfaction. "Perhaps they hope to damage us before we can fire." But on the bridge of the human ship, Captain Jihan had a very different plan. "Do-yun, what's the status on our reactors?" Chief Engineer Kim Do-yun's hands moved across his controls with practiced skill. "I've linked all 3 fusion cores to the main power grid, Captain. We're generating more energy than we've ever handled before. The ship's systems are holding, but barely." Soman, analysis of their weapon, Tactical Officer Lee. Soman studied the readings from the Velkari flagship. "It's definitely a planet killer, sir, but look at this energy signature. It's similar to our own fusion technology, just scaled up massively. If we could find a way to disrupt the containment field, you think we can turn it against them? Maybe. But we'd have to get very close, and we'd have to time it perfectly." Jihan looked at his crew. These 3 people had followed him into battle against impossible odds. Now he was asking them to risk everything one more time. "Minsu, open a ship-wide channel." Communications Officer Park Minsu activated the internal communications. Throughout the ship, the voices of the small crew could be heard over the speakers. "This is the captain," Jihan announced. "In 5 minutes, the enemy will fire a weapon capable of destroying planets. We can stop them, but it will require us to fly directly into the blast. I won't lie to you. We might not survive this." He paused, looking at each of his bridge crew in turn. "But if we don't try, the colony dies. 10 million people who trusted us to protect them. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. If you want to abandon ship, now is the time." The response came immediately from engineering. "Sir, Engineer Park here. My station is here, and here I stay." From the weapons deck. "Gunner Lee reporting. My weapons are locked and loaded, Captain." From life support. "Dr. Kim here. Someone has to patch you all up after this crazy plan works." One by one, every crew member on the ship reported their intention to stay and fight. No one left their post. Jihan felt a surge of pride in his people. This was what made humanity dangerous. Not their technology or their tactics, but their willingness to sacrifice everything for others. "All right then," he said. "Let's go save a planet." The Indomitable accelerated toward the Velkari flagship at maximum speed. The enemy ship was enormous, easily 50 times the size of the human vessel. Its world-breaker weapon jutted from the warrior's front like a massive spear, crackling with deadly energy. "Charging sequence at 90%, reported the Velkari weapons officer. "Target locked on the human colony." Thexvar watched the approaching human ship with confusion. What are they doing? They cannot possibly think they can ram us. Our shields will vaporize them long before they reach our hull. But the humans had no intention of ramming the flagship. Instead, they were aiming for something much more specific. There! Salmon called out, highlighting a section of the enemy ship on her display. The weapon's power coupling. If we can hit it with a focused energy burst right as they fire, the feedback could overload their entire system. Can we generate enough power? Jihan asked. Do-hyun was already working on the problem. I'm redirecting everything we have to the main guns, life support, gravity control, even the navigation systems. We'll have one shot. That's all we need. The Velkari World Breaker reached full charge. The weapon was a thing of terrible beauty, crackling with energy that could crack a planet's crust or boil away its atmosphere. Thexvar gave the order to fire. At that exact moment, the Indomitable released every joule of energy it had stored from hours of absorbing Velkari attacks. The beam was impossibly bright, a lance of pure destruction that struck the World Breaker's power coupling just as the Planet Killer fired. The result was catastrophic for both ships. The World Breaker's energy, instead of traveling toward the human colony, was reflected back through the Velkari flagship's own systems. Explosions cascaded through the massive ship as its biomechanical components overloaded. Secondary fires erupted throughout the vessel, but the Indomitable paid a price. For its victory, the massive energy discharge had drained every system on the ship. The lights went out. Gravity failed. Life support stopped. For a moment, the human vessel drifted dead in space. "Damage report!" Jihan called out in the darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the bridge. Do-hyun's voice came from his station, strained but determined. "Main power is offline. Backup systems are coming online now. We've got basic life support, but that's about it. The reactors will need at least an hour to restart safely." "Are we dead in space?" Jihan asked. "Not quite. I've got maneuvering thrusters only. We can move, but not fast." Soman checked her tactical display. "Captain, the Velkari flagship is severely damaged, but it's still functional. However, look at this." On her screen, the remaining Velkari fleet was in complete chaos. The destruction of their world breaker had sent shock waves through their formation. Many ships had been damaged by debris from the flagship. Others were simply sitting still, as if their crews could not believe what they had witnessed. "They've never seen anything like this," Jihan observed. "For 300 years, they've been the unstoppable force. Now they don't know what to do." Minsu looked up from his communication station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Velkari flagship." "Put it through." War Commander Thexvar appeared on the view screen. The proud Velkari leader looked shaken. His bridge was filled with smoke and emergency lighting. Behind him, his crew worked frantically to contain the damage. "Human captain," Thexvar said slowly, "you have done something impossible. You have defeated our most powerful weapon. How?" "By using it against itself," Jihan replied. "Your people have become so used to overwhelming force that you forgot the first rule of warfare. Every weapon can be turned against its user. You could have escaped. Why did you risk your ship and crew to stop us?" Jihan's answer was simple. "Because that's what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." Thexvar was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his damaged bridge sparked and smoked. His mighty fleet was broken and demoralized. His world breaker was destroyed. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on you," Jihan said. "You can continue this battle and lose everything, or you can choose a different path." "You would spare us? After what we tried to do?" War Commander, I don't want to destroy your fleet. I want to save the people on that planet. If you withdraw now, no one else has to die today. Thexvar looked around his ruined bridge. He thought of his crew who had followed him faithfully into battle. He thought of his empire, built on conquest and fear. And he thought of the small human ship that had changed everything. I need time to consider your offer, he said finally. You have 1 hour, Jihan replied. After that, my reinforcements arrive, and this becomes a very different kind of battle. The transmission ended, leaving both commanders to contemplate the future of their peoples. The hour of silence stretched between the two fleets like a held breath. War Commander Thexvar stood alone in his private chambers, staring out at the stars through a reinforced viewport. His flagship was damaged but functional. His fleet still, numbered over 600 ships. By all military logic, he should continue the attack. But logic had failed him today. In 50 years of command, he had never faced an enemy that fought like the humans. They did not rely on superior numbers or advanced weapons. Instead, they used intelligence, creativity, and something else he was only beginning to understand. They fought not for conquest, but for protection. A soft chime announced a visitor. His tactical officer entered and bowed respectfully. War Commander, the fleet awaits your orders. Do we continue the attack? Thexvar continued to stare at the stars. Tell me, Zekmor, in all your years of service, have you ever seen anything like what happened today? The younger officer hesitated. No, sir. The humans fight in ways we have never encountered. They turn our own strengths against us. They do more than that, Thexvar said quietly. They make us question everything we believe about warfare, about conquest, about ourselves. He turned away from the viewport and looked at his subordinate. How many worlds have we conquered, Zekmor? 512, War Commander. And how many of those worlds fought back effectively? None, sir. Until today. Thexvar nodded slowly. We have become so used to easy victories that we forgot what it means to face a true enemy. These humans are not like the others. They will not submit. They will not break. And they will never stop learning. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Jihan was receiving his own reports. Chief Engineer Kim Do-yun had managed to restore partial power to the ship's main systems. The reactors were coming back online slowly but steadily. How long until we have full power? Jihan asked. Another 30 minutes, Captain. But we'll have weapons and shields in 10 minutes. Tactical Officer Lee Soman looked up from her station. Sir, I'm detecting movement in the Velkari fleet. They're pulling back into a defensive formation. Are they preparing to retreat? Unknown. It could be a tactical withdrawal, or they might be regrouping for another attack. Communications Officer. Park Minsu interrupted. Captain, we have an incoming transmission. It's from Earth. Put it through. The view screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Chen aboard the flagship of the Second Fleet. Behind him, the bridge was filled with activity as hundreds of ships prepared for battle. Captain Jihan, this is Admiral Chen. We've been monitoring your battle. Outstanding work out there. Thank you, sir. What's your ETA? 17 minutes. We have 200 ships with us, including the new Dreadnought class. If the Velkari want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Jihan considered this. 200 human ships against 600 Velkari vessels. The odds were better than they had been, but still not favorable. And now that the humans had revealed their capabilities, the Velkari would be prepared for their tactics. Admiral, request permission to attempt negotiation before you arrive. Granted. But Jihan, if they refuse to withdraw, you are authorized to use any means necessary to protect the colony. Understood, sir. The transmission ended, and Jihan turned to his crew. Minsu, open a channel to the Velkari flagship. War Commander, Thexavar appeared on the screen. The proud alien leader looked different than he had at the beginning of the battle. His posture was less rigid, his expression more thoughtful. Captain Jihan, Thexavar said formally, I have considered your offer. And? First, I must ask you something. Why did you not destroy my fleet when you had the chance? You could have used our own weapon against all of us. Jihan thought carefully before answering. Because destroying your fleet would not have solved anything. It would only have created more enemies, thousands of Velkari crew members who were following orders, families who would want revenge, a cycle of violence that could last generations. But we came here to conquer your people. Yes, you did. But that doesn't mean you're evil. It means you're following the only path your people have known for centuries. Today showed both of us that there might be other paths. Thexavar was quiet for a moment. In 300 years of conquest, no enemy has ever spoken to us this way. Most beg for mercy or threaten revenge. You offer understanding. War Commander, your people are clearly intelligent and capable. You've built an empire that spans hundreds of worlds. But empires built on conquest alone eventually collapse. There's always someone stronger or smarter or more determined. Today, you met that someone. The humans. Not just humans. The idea that some things are worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. The belief that protecting others is more important than protecting yourself. That idea is spreading across the galaxy. Thexavar listened carefully. What are you proposing? A choice. You can continue this battle and face the full might of humanity. My reinforcements will be here soon, and they won't be as patient as I am. Or you can withdraw and report to your empire that you encountered something new. Something that changes the rules of the game. And if we withdraw, what then? Jihan smiled. Then we learn from each other. Your people have knowledge and experience that could benefit the galaxy. Our people have ideas and perspectives that could help your empire grow in new directions. Instead of conquest, we could try cooperation. The idea was radical. The Velkari had never cooperated with anyone as equals. They conquered or they ignored. There was no middle ground. But Thexavar was beginning to see the wisdom in the human's words. Today had proven that the old ways were no longer sufficient. The galaxy was changing, and the Velkari would need to change with it or be left behind. Captain Jihan, he said finally, I am prepared to withdraw my fleet, but I cannot speak for my superiors. When I report what happened here, there will be consequences. For you, for all of us. The Velkari Empire has never acknowledged defeat before. This will shake the foundations of everything we believe. Sometimes that's necessary, Jihan replied. Sometimes you need to break something before you can build something better. Thexavar considered this. Around him, his bridge crew listened to the conversation with growing amazement. No one had ever spoken to a war commander this way. No enemy had ever offered wisdom instead of threats. Very well, Thexavar said at last. I will order the withdrawal. But, Captain, know this. My people will remember what happened here. Some will seek revenge. Others will seek understanding. The choice between those paths will determine the future of the galaxy. I understand, War Commander. And I hope your people choose wisely. As do I. The transmission ended, and within minutes, the Velkari fleet began to withdraw from the system. The massive ships moved slowly, their formation more scattered than it had been at the beginning of the battle. They were no longer the unstoppable force they had once been. As the enemy fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Chen's forces arrived in the system. 200 human ships took defensive positions around the colony, ready for battle. But the battle was over. "Captain Jihan," Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication system. "Report. Mission accomplished, sir. The Velkari have withdrawn. The colony is safe." "Outstanding work, Captain. How did you manage to convince an entire fleet to retreat?" Jihan looked around his bridge at his crew. Kim Do-yun was bringing the ship's systems back to full power. Lee So-man was analyzing the battle data for future reference. Park Min-soo was coordinating with the colony to confirm that all civilians were safe. "We showed them something they had never seen before, sir. We showed them that there's more than one way to be strong." As the human fleet took up defensive positions around the colony, Captain Jihan reflected on what had happened. The Velkari would return to their empire with news of defeat and stories of a strange enemy that fought not for conquest, but for protection. Some would demand revenge. Others would be curious about these humans who offered wisdom instead of threats. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. But for today, 10 million people slept safely in their homes, protected by 4 humans in a small ship who had refused to let them down. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of understanding was about to begin.